Hello, everybody. This is Jonathan Matos, and this is the Content Aware podcast, sponsored by Graphically We're two Christian artists doing great art. Dang it, I messed it up again.
You can't get through one intro getting it right. We are two Christian content creators. I'm not pigeonholing myself as just an artist, even though if anyone would pigeonhole themselves at our site as just an artist, it would probably be me. So my writing's not super strong. At least I don't think so. But anyway, we are two Christian content creators creating Christian content, just creating good content in general that is gospel-centered, themed, or biblical themed, and things like that. And art created by Christians for everyone. See, I can get it right. I can nail it. You can't. I kind of stuttered through it a little bit, but I got there. You just gave up.
Well, it works best as saying graphicallychristian.com. Great Christian, great. Oh,
See, but you can't do it. You can't do it. It doesn't work great if you can't execute. Come on, man. Come on. Come on, you gotta do it. Do it. Do it.
That's my favorite part of that video. Is that he pauses, and it's so. Do it. Just do it. Oh my word.
Good.
Okay. Anyway, enough of Shia LaBeouf for a lifetime.
Running from your life.
Shia LaBeouf. Okay, that's enough now. This podcast is called Content Aware. Basically, it's just our excuse to talk about the entertainment that we've consumed this week, and give our opinions as Christians, as artists, and as people on this earth. So this week, as far as content on our website, we're going to keep trucking with Sentient Salad Bar, my comic strip on Tuesdays and Fridays. I am, as of this moment, thinking about tying up the arc that I have been working on for the past few months now. If for those of you who've been following or haven't been following, there's the brother character in it, Ozzy, has been training as a Navy SEAL and been trying. He failed the first test to become a Navy SEAL, and this it's coming up now that he's in the hospital and they don't know what's wrong with him. So the storyline is going to come to a close soon, but I'm not going to spoil how it's going to end. So look forward to that. Tuesdays, Fridays, start and/or continue reading. So yeah, as with no further ado, this edition is going to talk about our comics/game collectible type things. I don't really know what to call cards, but yeah, Matt bought magic cards, so he's going to talk a little bit about that.
Satanic panic. Don't do it.
Oh, is that okay? Maybe that's a surprise. I don't know. He said there's a surprise.
No, that's not the surprise. Trust me.
Oh, okay.
You'll know what happened.
So yeah, that's for later on in the podcast. I wanted to open up by talking about some of the comics I got, and we both discussed about our impressions of the series, even if I'm the only one who bought these specific comics, because they're kind of controversial in different ways. The first one I got was Tithe #1, and it's a Top Cow comic. Top Cow is a company that was spawned by, pun intended, again, it's spawned, Image Comics. There is a comic company that was started by some of the people that left Marvel, that's Image, and they each person that left Marvel basically started their own little in-house company. Top Cow was one of those. And the book Tithe is basically about a mega church that is robbed by this hacktivist organization. And so they're robbed by them, basically stealing money that the congregation itself really didn't know that they had. So it's like misappropriated funds being used on things that the congregation is not aware of. And also at the same time, the organization called Samaritan shows the congregation that their pastor has been spending money on like jets and women and stuff like that. So the writer himself, Matt Hawkins, is a self-professed atheist. And so my first impressions of this series is it was a lot of like kind of trite little like digs at Christianity. And so what I was hoping for the series was that it would be just a straight thing about televangelists. And that itself is very well expressed in the series because it starts off with this prologue that is like not associated with the comic itself, but it talks about this guy Jim Bakar, who was on the like 700 Club, who was arrested for fraud, and back in the late 90s, I think it was like 1989 or something, and as of 2003, he has his own show still. He got back into the, televangelist game even after he was arrested for fraud. And so it is openly attacking actual, like, prosperity gospel tactics. But at the same time, it was very, like, there didn't seem to be a clear line between, this is a good guy, this is a bad guy. I really expected them to focus more on, like, how the congregation itself was hurt by the fact, like, their money is, like, stolen or it's being misappropriated. But instead, the partner, there's, like, the main investigator who is a Christian and his partner who is more on, like, he's trying to pursue the hackers, who is an atheist. And it's more like a Bones type show,
Right.
Where, like, the one guy is a skeptic, the other guy is, a believer, and he's, like, trying to stick up for, like, Christians, even though these Christians in the comic got defrauded. So, like, I expected it to be a little bit deeper, and so, I don't know whether you ever heard of this comic. I remember when I told you about it, you're like, how do you even find out about these independent series?
Yeah.
But I don't know, are you interested in, like, borrowing it from me, or does it scream to you just like a gimmick?
I don't know. It's not definitely not my cup of tea as far as comics go. Um, but see, you like that sort of stuff. Like you like the detective, like mystery unraveling, conspiracy unraveling stuff. And I'm like, I've kind of been burned out on that for a while now. Like I
Uh-huh.
watched a lot of Bones. I was a big fan of Bones. When it first came out, when it was first airing, and I kind of like stopped after like the fifth or sixth season because I was just kind of burned out of that format of show. And I still kind of
Right.
am. I just seen it so much in different forms. Like I watched all the seasons of Fringe. They're still awesome. I think Fringe for me is by far the best show that has done that format, and it was still really the
Right.
only show that I go back and watch episodes of, even with that format. But I've watched so many shows with like that kind of like two cop, one skeptic, one believer format, or one plays by the rules, the other plays by his own rules type format. Um, so it's just like those being the two main characters and that kind of being the primary method through which the plot is delivered, that is just not interesting to me. Plus,
Right.
detective stories in comic book format to me, I don't think are. To me, it's not a type of story that I think plays well to the comic medium. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it feels like
Well,
act.
I think that's why before, like, we wrap up, because there's a couple comics to cover, the I think that's why I kind of lost interest in it, and why I might just, maybe if I come across the first trade, I might pick that up just because, like, I believe in, like, the message of it so much, because, like, in our church we always talk about the prosperity gospel and how destructive it can be. For those of you who don't know, like, it's kind of like the premise of most, like, televangelist type ministries, where a church is basically told, like, the more money you give to us, the more you're going to get back. You're going to get it back double fold. It's using a lot of scripture that is, basically telling you to be generous to fund, a personality-based ministry, and most of the time turns out to just be a fraudulent, message, which is like, they're using all this money to fund their lifestyle.
Well, another
and
term
it really
for
does nothing for
that is
the church.
the prosperity gospel is also commonly called the health and wealth gospel. That if you come to church enough, give enough money, pray enough, eventually you'll have no problems. You'll have a ton of money, you have great health, you have great relationships. It's completely focused on the temporal. It's completely focused on the here and now, which is not the point of salvation or scripture or the Bible or anything. It's all about it's all about things that are eternal and things like that. So it's the reason why it's so hated in a sense among true Christians is because it demeans everything. It's almost the exact opposite of everything that the Bible says life is supposed to be about. It kind of flips it all.
So yeah, so because I support like people actually, and especially like a secular establishment or something that has maybe a little bit more reach than just a general, something that a Christian would put out, I guess. I support that being put out at a wider thing, and maybe the message can reach more people that are being affected by it. But at the same time, like the reason why I'm less likely to, just run out to buy the next issue or whatever. It's pretty old at this point, but the reason I would be less likely to do that is because it does seem like it is a very the drama is not going to be in exploring the characters necessarily, and more just like following these Samaritan people as they take down like church after church after church. And it's kind of just going to be like a what do they call it, like a procedural type series,
right.
Which, as you said, like it's been done a lot before. And the thing about it being in comic form was that I thought, considering how, I mean, it in terms of like the episodes, like obviously it's a monthly comic, so like you're getting about as many, if not more, iterations as like an episode of a show. But I would think that since it's at Image or Top Cow or whatever, there would be a different kind of structure. But it just seems like it's going to be procedural. So,
right. Yeah.
Moving on, I bought Superman 41, and for those of you who don't know, issue 41 of DC Comics now is kind of like a soft reboot for different DC Comics. They're starting an imprint, or not imprint, but like a banner or a masthead or something called DCU, where they're changing up some of the talent on some of the books that either are not doing as well or are looking to take a different kind of thing. Like, for example, Matt said he bought issue 41 of Batman, where the same creative team, Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, are doing a version of Batman where it's Commissioner Gordon taking up the thing. What'd you say?
I said spoilers. It's kind of loud.
Oh,
I think I peaked the audio.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry.
Everybody kind of knows.
Headphone users. I'm so sorry. But yeah, dude, come on,
but like
man.
that's
Spoilers.
that's like the pitch, though.
No, it's not.
Like,
Pitch is Mecha Batman. Pitch is Mecha Batman, and who's in the suit? That's the whole mystery.
Oh, is that the? I didn't even know that. Everybody was telling me it's like you told me it was Commissioner Gordon.
Well, because I found out beforehand because the issue had already come out. But before the issue came out, there was the whole like.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think DC wants people to know that it's Commissioner Gordon.
Fine, just ruin the mystery. Go ahead. No, it's fine. They've already passed.
It could be anybody. Like, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna make it a mystery, call it Battle for the Cowl again.
No, don't. Like, we're not going.
That was a pretty. I mean, but that made it pretty clear that it was supposed to be a. Anyway.
It's Alfred.
We're going off track.
Alfred's supposed to be
Superman
Batman.
41 is the issue that I bought, and because that doesn't that kind of signify the difference between us is that I'm buying Superman 41, you're buying Batman 41.
Sure.
So Superman 41 is by Jean Luen Yang, who I'm a super fan of. Uh, I've rented and or bought most of his graphic novels, including American Born Chinese, um, the it's not the Green Turtle. The Green Turtle is this hero. It's the Shadow Hero. It's another graphic novel he did. But now he's writing Superman, so it was like I need to get this issue. Also, because John Romita Jr. is doing the art, and Klaus Johnson is doing the inking. Two of my favorite art illustrators.
Yeah.
So I bought it and I thought it was pretty good. It was it wasn't like some things like for example when they relaunched Justice League, it was kind of like being billed like as an action movie.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like this is like a new Justice League for a new generation. It's gonna be like blockbuster type thrills. But this is kind of like this. I would compare the tone of this to how like Michael Straczynski did his Spider-Man run.
Oh yeah,
For
I'm
those
only
of
going
you
to
who are
compare it to
familiar with
one of the
that,
most legendary runs of one of the biggest heroes of all time.
okay. What
Way not to hype this up that much, John. Way to kind of be a little
well,
low
I mean, I
key.
didn't. Okay, I didn't say it was like what was the what's the trade paperback where he fights Moreland? Is that
Coming home.
Coming Home? I
Yeah.
didn't say Coming Home. Like that to me, that is like the quintessential book in that run. But what I mean to say is that like it's not the run is not focused on like drop down, bang out fights
Well,
and
yeah.
things like that. It's more focused on Superman as like what makes this character tick. It's like seeing, seeing how he deals with Jim Yeltsin, um, seeing because I think the elevator pitch for this series now is that in the before issue 41, it was kind of revealed that um, Lois Lane reveals who Superman is. Like she finds
Ooh.
out and she reveals that it's Clark Kent.
Reveals to
And
who?
now
To the world?
I think it's to the world.
Ooh.
But so the pitch basically for Jean Luen Yang's run is why did she do this? And so it's I don't know if it's going back in time or whatever, but it's showing how she finds out and why she would do it. And I think what they're hinting at right now is that somebody was already going to blackmail him. They were already going to try to use this against him.
Right.
The fact that his identity is still secret. So that's what it introduces, and it also it's introducing some kind of like weapons um, plot and stuff.
So it's
And
not doing like a Superman celebrity type thing where everyone wants to know everything about him now and how now that everyone knows who
well,
he is, like you feel like paparazzi and like
well,
everyone
it
wants to
doesn't get into
interview
that
him.
in this issue.
Okay.
Like I think what they're doing with him is like they're with this issue. Um, there's like the I think there's gonna be like a 3-issue arc that's like truth, justice, and the American way or
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
And I think in those 3 issues, it's gonna the premise basically is gonna kind of be, um, in these 3 issues, you'll have found out what is going on behind the scenes or what's been going on behind the scenes, and then if assuming that Gene Luen Yang is going to still be on the series, he'll be able to then own the Superman that is, finally like it's his public persona and his private persona are identified in the same thing. Um, so it's kind of like I guess another way to compare it to would be like Mark Waid's Daredevil because it's like that's basically the premise of part. It's part of the thing of that is that it's revealed that it's Matt Murdock. Um, but it's like it's very lighthearted, and also at the same time like the action is since John Romita Jr.'s on it, it's very visceral. So I've been enjoying it, and maybe if you're of the opinion that like every Superman book should be like a knockdown drag out fight, then you maybe wouldn't be into it. But it was I thought it was written pretty well. Uh, but are you just going to follow the Batman um, thing just because that's what I'm describing isn't your bag, or um, how do you feel about it?
What about the Superman storyline or about the Batman?
Yeah, like I'm just saying, like, do you think that you're gonna follow any other like soft reboots that are issue 41, or
I don't.
you're just gonna stick to Batman?
I honestly don't know because I wasn't even really aware of the soft reboot thing, honestly. So I gotta kind of check that out. Well, I think I'm gonna be into the soft reboot for Deathstroke, um, because I'm pretty sure he's part of that one. Because it's a little bit confusing because some of them are in soft reboots where the 41st issue is the soft reboot, and then some ones are just like issue number one. Like, for example, Batman Beyond or Batman Unlimited or Batman Universe. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's the new Batman Beyond series. That I got issue number one of that, but I'm behind on that. I'm behind by like 4 to 5 issues on that. So that launched some
Okay.
time ago. I'm not sure. That's not part of this new soft launch. I don't believe. I think Deathstroke is.
Yeah, I when you first were describing it to me, and you can describe it to our audience here, that I remember seeing that like image of him with the God Killer sword.
Mhm.
I remember seeing that in the promotional things for DCU, YOU. So I think that's part of the thing. But yeah, you can tell everybody what that's about.
Well, so basically the premise. I haven't read this book yet. I have it. It's still bagged and boarded as of right now. I haven't taken it out yet. But the premise of it is that Deathstroke is, of course, the assassin that takes on any contract, never says no. So he gets contracted by the Greek god Helios, which I assume is a villain of Wonder Woman. I don't know. I don't really know much about her lore or anything like that. But he gets contracted by the Greek god Helios to kill Wonder Woman. But Wonder Woman's obviously an immortal and can only be killed by other immortals wielding magical weapons or whatever. So he can't kill her using traditional means. And so I think normally Deathstroke wouldn't do this kind of one. But Helios gives him a God Killer sword, which can actually kill Wonder Woman. So now he takes the contract and he has a God Killer sword, so he could effectively just like cut down anyone in his way. Like, it's not just Wonder Woman that he can take down now. He can take down any immortal and possibly others. We don't know the exact nature of the God. At least I don't. Maybe the lore is out there, but I don't know the exact nature of the God Killer sword. I don't know if it's just like a magical super sword that can kill like almost anything, because then it might be able to kill Superman. Because I don't know if the retcon has been um, floored yet, but it used to be that Superman could get killed by magical items or could be hurt by magical things. So maybe it could do some serious damage to Superman. I don't know. But I like the idea. I like the idea that Deathstroke is kind of on his own little path, and he's gonna have to throw a wrench inside of the typical workings of the Justice League and the Wonder Woman's whole thing and whatnot. I kind of like when major power shifts happen for minor characters, where it's just like Deathstroke was kind of this guy who floated around. Every now and then he was a problem for Batman and a few other guys, but he was never really like a serious threat to like the Justice League or or Superman or Wonder Woman or whatever. But now he's like, he can cut down anyone in his way. He's coming for like one of the triumvirate of the Justice League. So now things are getting pretty crazy. Like, Deathstroke
Yeah,
is
that's
a
always
big
an
deal
interesting
now.
thing when there's a character that all of a sudden gets a weapon or some kind of thing that makes them more intimidating than usual. Like
Yeah.
they're at a certain level where like they maybe they're a villain for like maybe if it's like take like Craven the Hunter for an example.
Hmm.
Like he's a threat to Spider-Man, but and like he's pretty respected or intimidating in that series, but imagine him being able to hunt like anybody in the Marvel universe. Now, now I just gave away that story, and somebody's gonna pitch that to Marvel. Um,
Yeah, fun with that.
but anyway, but so yeah, so that seems pretty interesting, and I might want to borrow that from you eventually. Um, but yeah, that's another one of the DCU things, and if you're unaware of that soft reboot thing, just kind of keep that in the back of your cap or whatever. That's on its way.
But yeah.
Another book that I got from the comic shop was actually a free giveaway. It was Ivar Time Walker, #1.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like I don't know if it's most of the issue or if it's just a like the last half of an issue or something, because it does seem like it ends on like a pretty like final note, like that would be the last page of the comic. But from what I can tell, the elevator pitch is kind of like, what if Doctor Who, like went to the person who invented the TARDIS, and because like the whole premise is like there's this person that like Doctor Who is able to travel through time, but who he's choosing as his companion, or who he's trying to protect from the bad guys of the issue, is the woman who invents time travel. Like he straight up tells her, "You're about to invent time travel, but you have to come with me because they're gonna try to kill you." So I feel like that's enough of like a difference. Like for example, like when I'm watching the commercial for Legend of Tomorrow, and there's that random British guy who just says he's a time traveler. I'm just like, that's too much. Like, why does he have to be British? Why?
Because he's Arthur Darvill
he,
and he's amazing. He actually is British.
Listen, my point is that
why do British people have to use their accents in TV shows? They should just all be Americans.
No. That's not my point of thing. My point of my point of anger or like dissent. My point of dissent is that like if there's a character who's gonna travel through time, and you're writing this character and you're thinking of casting, just pick an American. Like you want as little association with the thing that you're ripping off as possible.
Yeah, but
anyway, that remains to be seen.
Just because there's a popular British time traveler, that means no other British actor can be cast as a time traveler ever. Wow. Wait.
Exactly.
Way too pigeonhole.
My point is,
British people, John.
that if you hear this elevator pitch, and you're thinking, oh, that's just gonna be like Doctor Who, be aware that it seems like a different character. It seems like even though this person can travel through time, the whole point of it is making the companion the real main character, and like using the fact that she's gonna be the one that travels through time, or that invents time travel, and like I had read Quantum and Woody, when everybody was like, they were all excited that was gonna get a reboot, and I didn't really like it. I didn't know why everybody thought it was funny. And that was a Valiant book, so that kind of turned me off to the Valiant line. But getting this preview book, I'm like, this is actually a pretty cool and funny and interesting book, so I might actually look for that trade paperback at some point. So yeah, have you read any Valiant book?
Nope. Zippo.
Do you have any interest whatsoever?
I don't know any Valiant books. I don't think. Trying to think. Nope. I don't think I've read any of them.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. The first thing that really struck me, and why I had my eye out for more stuff from them, was because I read some kind of or not review, but it was like a study done that like apparently it averages the score of aggregate sites for comic books. And so like comic book resources and all these sites that give like a 1 through 10 score of their comics. It sort of pulled those like Rotten Tomatoes does, and basically last year Valiant Entertainment's books got the highest out of all the scores of the out of the comics that came out. So I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. Like, this is the first time I'm seeing like critic scores averaged, and I didn't realize that their books critics are kind of liking them. And I guess with the all this hubbub about reboots and stuff, like they decided, hey, let's reboot our comics and get a fresh face on it. And it seems like some of their they do another book called Archer and Armstrong that people are digging, and it seems like they're doing something new. So for those of you who haven't heard of Valiant, just put that in your cap too. I don't know why I'm using this cap metaphor, Anyway, the last book you may have heard about is Strange Fruit, #1. And I gave Matt the kind of elevator pitch before we started, but basically it's Black Superman. This alien comes from, whatever doomed planet he's from, and really the only difference is that he's fully grown when he exits the rocket ship. And he is super strong, so he beats up some racist, some Klansmen, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know if you've heard, like, the buzz kind of, like, surrounding this book, but it's being kind of controversial because it falls into that kind of, like, revenge fantasy stuff, kind of like Inglourious Bastards a little bit. And I know even, like, from some of the conversations I've heard in like in the comic book store while I was there, it was kind of like people were talking about how is this the kind of thing that we need with all this stuff happening in the media? Like, is this revenge fantasy thing the solution, or is it just gonna stir up more like strife? So do you want to give your opinion on that? What do you think of like revenge fantasy stories?
Nope. I'm gonna stay miles away from anything racially charged.
Well, no, like, but what I'm not asking what's your opinion of this race? Like, that's not an intelligent
No,
way of
obviously,
talking about.
but I mean,
But what I mean is like, what do you think about stories like Inglourious Bastards, where like it's basically revisionist history, like letting a certain race who has been, preyed upon or oppressed, letting them have some kind of character who is, just like kicking butt in the name of like revenge or in the name of like protecting this group of people.
I mean,
Because like I know I personally like the Inglourious Bastards movie. I enjoyed that for what it was. I liked it, Django Unchained, but I know every time one of those movies comes out or one of those types of things like with Strange Fruit, there's always like a conversation like, is this doing more harm than good? And I don't know, like it seems to me it's always like uh, people allow it to be what it is. Like I don't know I don't think it's ever caused enough conflict to where it was like seen as like hate speech and it inspired actual violence to happen. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that, well, the argument as to whether or not they're doing more harm than good, it's irrelevant because it's impossible to tell how much harm it could actually do, and it's impossible to tell how much good it could actually do. So that question is kind of pointless because it can never be answered. But I think if you want to ask the question, should those stories be made? I think they have a right to be made along with any other story and as a part of freedom of expression and just creative enterprise in general. Um, and I think those stories can definitely have a place and they can be satisfying for a wide variety of people, not just necessarily people of that particular race that is participating or that's at least featured in this revenge fantasy or whatever you want to call it. But I think it can also appeal to all other sorts of people who are just like ticked off about the injustice that was done during that period or just ticked off by seeing that injustice just done in the movie. Like, for example, I really enjoyed Django Unchained, um, just because, while it's a kind of like a black revenge fantasy in a way, not completely or not. That's not all that movie is, but that is a big part of it. I enjoy it still because it showed like injustice getting kind of its just desserts, more or less, and it's still very satisfying to watch, even if it's not necessarily part or it's not going to fall within the parameters of a revenge fantasy for a particular group of people because I don't fall in that particular group of people. But it still can be very satisfying for any reader or viewer or whatever. So yeah, I mean, you want to make it, and then if it's a good story, people will like it. and not necessarily because it's just a revenge fantasy for that specific group of people. So, I don't know. I think revenge fantasies can be good. There's obviously a line to the point where you don't want to cross the line where your character is just as bad or worse than the people that they're going after. I think that's kind of like the revenge fantasies go overboard, where it's like you're torturing, dismembering people. Now it's like, now you're kind of a psychopath and a maniac, and you're probably just as bad as they are, just in a different way. So
Right.
I think that's kind of what you have to watch out for. But otherwise, as long as you stay far away from that line, I think it's okay.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, I think that the main thing that like that might more like the revenge fantasy might be more like a label for these types of things. Like I know whenever people like start interviewing Tarantino about like, you know, what do you feel about all this violence in your movie? He's just like, it's just a movie. You know, like people are trying to make the case that, you know, for some reason that his creations are, you know, fueling some kind of like, you know, fueling actual sadists or whatever. Like, there's no evidence to back that up at all.
And it would be near impossible to collect that evidence if it existed. But anyway.
Yeah, like the more of an idea, I think, is what you're saying, that like, you know, you don't want to be watching it and then thinking like, well, this isn't even a hero anymore. Like, you know, that's probably where we would both toe the line. And I think like part of that, I think there's a more positive hero in that way would probably be Luke Cage, because I know when that comic came out, the premise was, what was that?
Sweet Christmas.
Oh yeah, Sweet Christmas.
Couldn't
Yeah. But like the main premise in that when it came out was just kind of like, what if, you know, you were in like Harlem in New York and there was this guy that was just like taking down drug dealers and stuff, and the pitch for that comic was more or less just like, look out for the people in your neighborhood, and like that I think is more of like the idea, even though it's like extreme circumstances and extreme characters, the idea in those types of movies are like, you know, we care about this injustice that was done, and you know, if you're watching this movie, you're just trying to get catharsis and see like the injustice being righted, and it's the same thing with a hero who is just trying to protect his people. That's really the goal that you're trying to strive for, I think. So, yep, this has been our edition of Comic Book Haul in this Content Aware podcast. Are there any closing thoughts, Matt Matthias?
Nope. I'm good. Next week is going to be my week to talk. I'm going to have so many books.
Yeah,
maybe not even next week. We might do another one before then, because there's a lot to discuss. I have a lot of books.
Yep, Matt got a comic book haul, and then he got Magic cards, which he is contractually obligated not to talk about on the podcast.
That might be entirely another podcast.
Might be a whole series of podcasts.
There's some different topics. You know, Magic hasn't exactly had the best track record as far as interacting with the Christian community. So, sure we'll touch on that.
Yeah, I'll try to look up something for that one as well. But yeah, now we're going a little bit too far because we're planning for podcasts on the podcast. So we'll see you next week, and until then, God bless.
Adios.